Okay, so I'm Martin Schröder. I'm professor of sociology at Saarland University, and I always get asked whether generations have a different work motivation. And the point is, they don't. So I can comfortably say that your work motivation does not depend on your generation. So it doesn't depend on when you've been born. It's really about your age and when you live. I don't just say this. I published these results in an article, which you can see here. It got published in the Journal of Business and Psychology. You can download it. I'll put a link in the description below. So let's get into the results. You know the myth, Generation Z is apparently disengaged in the workplace. The millennials feel super entitled, but the boomers, the baby boomers, they apparently have a great work ethic. But the question then is this actually supported by data or are those just our prejudices? I used a global study of work motivation, which was the International Values Survey. It asked 584,000 people in 113 countries over 40 years. And they asked a pretty simple question. Do you find work very important, rather important, not very important, or not at all important? Then people can assign numbers to these categories. And basically what you can check out then is, does the answer depend on your generation, so when you've been born, or does it depend on your age, how old you are, and the time period when you've been asked? So let's get into the results. These here are age effects. So if you look at the answers, what you basically see is on the scale from 1 through 4, young people are not, well, they are motivated. They have a 3.4 if they are 15. But if you turn around 40, you're even a bit more motivated to work, which is totally logical. I mean, think about it. You're 15, you probably have other things on your mind than working. And if you're 35, 45, well, you're trying to establish yourself, you're in the prime of your working life. Then again, after that, slowly, as you approach retirement and as you retire, totally unsurprisingly, your work motivation decreases. So this here is irrespective of what generation you belong to and irrespective of when you've been asked. When you grow older, you first become more motivated to work and then eventually you become less motivated to work. So what about period then? These here are period effects. So basically in 1985, people haven't been super motivated to work all the time. Then they became more motivated to work in the 90s, but then it actually slowly declined so that now everyone is less motivated to work in 2020. Now you could say, well, maybe these are the generational effects. So later generations have been asked later, and this is why later everyone is less interested in work. Not really. Check this out. Here you see the same thing controlling for the effect of generations. So basically what I'm doing here is um, I look at the same generation and check out how they feel about work over time. And again, you see basically no change. So people now feel less motivated to work, regardless of what generation they belong to, or differently put, across all ages and all birth cohorts and purported generations, people are valuing work slightly less over time. And this is, if you like, a societal shift. It's not a generational trait. So time matters, age matters, but now let's look at generational membership. So here you can see when people have been born and how motivated they are to work. And now you might be inclined to say, well, there you have it, work motivation declines as a function of generation. So one generation after another is less inclined to work. Well, there's a problem. There's still the effective period that we have to control for. I'm already controlling for age, but the later you ask people, the later they will have been born. So these generations here, born in 1995, Well, you simply couldn't ask them in the 90s if they are motivated to work because they haven't been around to be asked. So let's instead have a look at what this looks like if we control for period. And it really looks like this. So there's not much left. If you consider that different generations have been asked at different times and only look at how motivated different generations are, if asked about their work motivation at the same time, you get this here. So you basically get nothing. This means that age and historical time period explain work motivation. Generational membership does not. It seems to explain it, but what really happens is simply that later generations have been asked later when everyone was less interested to work, when earlier generations were also less interested to work. So basically, don't blame generations for their work ethic. Understand the life course. Younger people have always been a little bit less motivated to work, and understand the times we live in. Yes, young people are less motivated to work, but that is because everyone is less motivated to work. It has nothing to do with when you've been born. It has to do with a general societal shift towards less work motivation. So, why do we believe in generations if really they don't exist? There are some small differences. So, I looked at different variables, and yes, you can also see it with work motivation. You can see it with different variables. So, sure, if you want to say that a work motivation difference of 0.1 on a scale from 4 is important, then yes, you can see very small generational differences. What I think is more important is this here, though. We confuse age and period effects with generational effects. So we're saying, oh, but the young are different. They must be part of a different generation. No, it just means that there's an age effect. The young have always been less motivated to work. And we're saying, but the young are less motivated to work now than they used to be. Yes, but everyone is less motivated to work than they used to be. So we confuse age and period effects with generational effects. The problem is also that our brain likes to discriminate. So we like to say, well, these younger born or these older born, they are just not interested in work. They are not interested in climate change, whatever. Really, what this generationalism is just another form of discrimination. Our brain loves to say women and men are different. Some people even say, well, it depends on your skin color. Well, this is sexism and racism. You shouldn't really do this because while it may make the world easier, first of all, you shouldn't judge people based on their sex or on their skin color. And second of all, most of the time, it doesn't explain very much. It feels satisfying to have a category in which you can put people. But if really this category doesn't explain that much, it doesn't help you to do it. And this is the case with generations. It seems to make sense, but really it's just another form of discrimination that feels good but doesn't explain much. Then, last thing, it's a business model. HR departments want to justify why they exist, so they are saying, well, we will tell you about the new generation, how to hire them and whatnot, so you shouldn't fire us in your company. You have the media, which love to talk about the generation war that really doesn't exist. And you have so-called research institutes that are very happy to sell you their generational training and what it is for good money, um, based on sociological categories, in this case when someone has been born, that don't really explain that much. So that's really it. This is how I can argue empirically that generations don't exist. It's obviously a bit more complicated. If you want to know how I did this regression analysis over 113 countries, if you want to know more about this, if you want to have a look at the online annex or at the article, if you have access, I'm going to link all of this in the comments below. At the same time, This is my first video about research findings, so let me know if you found this interesting, if you want to have more about this, what you'd be interested in, and finally, if you like the video, give me a like button, or I'll be happy to hear some criticism in the comments below if you think there's something I could have done better. Well, thank you for listening though.